All right, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Hopefully everyone has had a good chance to relax, actually get outside and enjoy some of the nice weather for a bit. I'm going to keep rambling until the actual screen shows up appropriately. But yeah, I guess I'll do a quick introduction. Hi everyone, I'm Eugene Leventhal. I'm the head of operations at the Smart Contract Research Forum. At some point soon, I will be walking you through a bit of a discussion on research impact networks or what a decentralized research center can actually look like. But yeah, I'm very excited to get to be part of the activities that are taking place at Global Governance Gathering. And it's definitely been a great day or two of discussion. I don't know how many folks have had the chance to actually join yesterday for the DAO Science conversation that a few of us were leading, but it was great seeing the turnout and the enthusiasm around that. At this point, I'm just wondering how much actual time I'm going to need to start doing filler. I guess I should have prepped a 5-minute stand-up set just in case. All right, well, I'll keep talking for now in the meantime while we're working through AV issues. And some of these things will actually need slides, so hopefully we'll get to show that at some point. But in general, I want to have a discussion as much as possible, or at least present the idea of decentralized research centers. And the starting point that I'm taking for how I think about this is actually through the Impact Network framework. So if anyone here has heard of or interacted with David Ehrlichman, he has a book called Impact Networks. I have a quote up here that I'll show you at some point. But yeah, in general, I really like these ideas of impact networks effectively being these networks that are a mix of a healthy, vibrant community as well as an effective organization. So how can we think of pairing the efficiency of organizations with healthy, vibrant communities that are very focused on, being mission aligned, having a common goal, having a very deep personal culture, intrinsic motivation being present, as well as more of the extrinsic and financial components that are very present in actual organizations. And so I think this kind of network model is a really interesting one to start thinking about research more broadly, or as I'm thinking of it now, sort of what is the network stack necessary? What are the combination of different networks that we need and that need to be coordinated and overlapping to actually be able to drive a focused series of change in some kind of wider knowledge ecosystem? And Smart Contract Research Forum, where I work, we're very much focused on research in the Web3 space specifically. So you might see us around in some DeSci conversations. I think a lot of what we're talking about can be broadened out into research review, publication across any topic domain area. But especially for us, we are primarily interested in the impacts in the Web3 space specifically. So what does it mean for research around governance, around security, around cryptography, consensus, scaling, around core research problem areas in the Web3 space? So yeah, in a nutshell, and hopefully I'll be able to show some actual visuals to help be able to digest some of this, because I realize there's a lot in here. But one aspect of it is sort of thinking about what I think of as the intellectual network layer. And that is itself composed of multiple networks around research, around review and publication. And I'm pairing those two very intentionally because as of today, the only way you can get formal peer review is by actually trying to get published in a formal venue or go through a formal conference of some kind. Those are really the only mechanisms where you get access to some kind of formal peer review structure where you can then take your paper and say, hey, this has been peer reviewed. This is an officially recognized thing. And so we're very interested in running an experiment around open peer review and what does sort of decoupling the actual review side from the publishing side look like, and how can you provide that kind of review oversight and review support layer for groups focusing on any individual topic domain. And so, yeah, that's sort of coming back again to what I'm dubbing, just because I don't know of a better term for this yet, but sort of the intellectual network layer, where is that research, review, and publication, but all of those have their own networks under them. So it's not as though any of these are singular networks. And the intellectual side is really only one part of the overall ability to generate new knowledge and all of the facets and all the networks that are necessary for it, because in addition to the actual research, review, and publication layer, you need more of the actual community layer. The humans just socializing and being personal with each other, right? Really deeply building that culture together. But also I see that social layer also entailing communication, which is more of media and advocacy. You need to tell people outside of your network network, what the heck is going on there, what research are you actually working on, what are the outputs, and how do you actually get that connected as much as possible to people experimenting and actually trying to run with things and actually trying to build new systems. So I'm sure if anyone here has spent any time in academia, the whole mission of connecting industry and academia it's a very trite one that gets thrown around very regularly. But I think when thinking about how to get research most utilized in the world and most effectively placed into the hands of builders, that connection is actually a very important one. And I think that the fact that we don't have great models to point to around it is itself an issue and a challenge area around where have some of the incentives been misaligned. Which again, if coming back to that idea of the intellectual network layer being research, review, publication, social being community, communication, and more of the initial learning pathways, right? Even those two are not enough. You still need an operational network and you need a funding network. And operational networks might seem a little odd to folks. No luck? Let me try restarting, I guess. Let's see if that'll do anything. Just use a different laptop. I can share this presentation with whatever Gmail is on here. Yeah, do you mind entering the email to share it with? And thank you. And so, yeah, so there's that sort of intellectual layer of research, review, publication. There's the social on the community, communication, and actual learning and pathways into this. And the operational layer, I think, is one that we don't actually have great models for, because usually operations are entirely managed within a single organization. So the idea of operations as a public good, or how do we give away operational resources to other entities, is not something that's actually been that actively experimented with. And in my opinion, at least, the only great models of it have been from the open source world, where a group of volunteers come together to manage some kind of thing, to manage open code bases or things along those lines. But what is actually providing and intentionally building that kind of operational layer for an entire industry, that does not necessarily have a lot of great precedence. So I know that's, in our opinion, a very important aspect of this overall, the different layers of networks necessary to create this more decentralized knowledge ecosystem. And the last one is obviously funding, because the world being what it is, people need to be paid for their time in order to dedicate a lot of their time towards some endeavor. And so where you're actually getting the money, both for the research funding, in our opinion, in the experiment that we're running, we want to pay reviewers for their time reviewing, and also for funding the operations layer, because that's probably the least sexy part of any of this, and one of the most important parts, because just getting more, right, like go to any academic lab, and usually if you ask them what their greatest needs are, it's going to be, like brilliant postdocs and PhDs and whatever, and then you actually dig in and ask why, and almost always it'll be like, yeah, we need good comms people and good PMs. Like finding really good project managers are a challenge in most environments, and I imagine everyone here is currently building a DAO. If only we all had 10x the number of people that we can trust and rely on to actually effectively get things done, would be a lovely change, I'm assuming, not just at the places that I've been exposed to. So, yeah. So, definitely very important to think about how all of these layers can kind of come together. And so what we want to propose with this idea of a decentralized research center is what is combining these four network layers, the intellectual side, the social side, the funding side, and the ops side. What happens when you combine all of those networks and build a cohesive culture on a single topic area? And so I know we're very excited, we at SCRF are very excited to collaborate with Connor and crew at the DAO Research Cooperative, as well as Josh Tan and crew at MetaGov to coordinate on actually building one of these out. And so, yeah, 9 minutes left. So, I guess real quick, if anyone wants a POAP, feel free to scan that. This flow is going to be a little wonky, so I need to zip through some stuff here real quick. But yeah, I will be able to share this. If you're coming to D-Side Day, you will get to see it tomorrow. But yeah, I got to switch off this one real quick, so please get your phones out ASAP. And I can show that again later. But yeah, right, I wanted to talk about the whole idea of what is a network. It's a group of people or it's some kind of system looking to accomplish something. There are present in biological, structures, and then we can build more complex social ones, and then from there we can even build more complex technical ones. So networks are present in a variety of different areas. This was the quote that I was alluding to from David Ehrlichman's Impact Networks, which I think is a very great book and just an overview of how to think about it. And I think this combination, again, of the vibrant community and healthy organization is a great way to think about any kind of network and the resulting change you want to come from that network. So again, sorry I'm going to be zipping through these, but I just want to show some stuff. But yeah, keep in mind as I'm mentioning the actual research centers, the idea of impact networks and the fact that different networks will be most effective at very different scales. And it's important to understand the necessary scale based on the intended impact of that network. And then what is the right combination of networks to come together to accomplish an overarching goal that might be more complex. So I already talked about this whole idea of kind of knowledge networks really being focused on the research side, which comes out of academia, industry, and independent researchers. The review and publication side are joint, really tied through conferences or publications of specific kind. But again, this is only a smaller subset of this greater kind of network stack that I'm thinking of. So I already mentioned the fact that the intellectual or the research review and publication, and the social one, and I'll get into breaking some of these down in a little more color. But yeah, so in addition on the intellectual side real quick, the researcher training, this is more of like a PhD being trained into a postdoc. This is not general education. This is like you have all the most requisite skills. We are teaching you how we do research here in our lab kind of training. So that's what I'm dubbing as the intellectual network side. Social is this mix of community, media, and advocacy, and more of those initial learning pathways. So budding is, say, a master's student who is going to be ready to be a PhD soon. Aspiring could be anyone at the beginning of their learning journey who one day wants to be a researcher. The funding side, I think this one is more straightforward of who actually funds research. The operational side, again, usually only exists within single organizations because there are really no incentives unless someone just feels like a nice person or nice group. Why would you dedicate so many operational resources for other people's benefits? And then culture, while itself is not a network in my opinion, they are present in all networks and all collections of human beings, as well as across these, right? So there's a lot of layers in what I just mentioned, and each layer can have its own culture, which can actually clash with other layers of this and can really open the door to a lot of room for potential failure. And so this is another way that I kind of visualize these network layers and the different components that come together, and I'll make sure to share these slides later. Sorry that I got to rush through these, but at the end of the day, once you decide that any of this is a good idea and trying to combine this kind of network stack, how do you actually start operationalizing it? And first you have to figure out a scale, a focus, who is actually going to be doing the initial lift, and where is the seed funding coming from? And once you think through some of these questions, that's where it comes up in what in my mind is a decentralized research center. Or it's that network layer of the networks of all of the relevant researchers, the community network layer, the learning network, any kind of media advocacy kind of networks that need to be built, the funding network layer, the operational network layer, and architecture. And on the architecture side, that can be sort of communication architecture, information architecture, or actual decision-making architecture. I'm sure we've all used Snapshot here at some point or other. All right, what are the actual mechanisms and tools we're using for these? And in each one of these networks, realistically, very frequently, unless they're organized by the same people, they will have different architecture. So unless there's a coordination effort to bring people onto similar tooling, how do we actually have research coming out of one space coordinating with research coming out of another? And realistically, it's just culture and the technical convenience of interaction that drive that kind of interaction unless someone is thoughtfully building this across all of these networks. And so what does all this come together for in the context of Web3 research and building out a wider knowledge ecosystem? So the way we're looking at this is this idea of having a variety of different decentralized research centers which encapsulate what I was showing as that layered network approach that, you know, the intellectual layer, the social layer, the funding layer, the ops layer. So each one of these decentralized research centers would capture that entire network stack for focused topics. So imagine one of these for governance, one of these for cryptography, one of these for security, one of these for scaling, for consensus, for all the core building blocks of what it takes to actually build and improve Web3. And in addition to that, you need some meta layers, right? Because review and publication can exist in each single domain, but is that actually better or worse than having meta layers? And we don't know the answers to that, but we definitely want to work with a bunch more folks to experiment across these and get a better sense of how it might look. And what SCRF is very much focused on is actually building this meta-level knowledge layer. And how can we actually incentivize groups to want to contribute information from their individual topic domains into a single repository that doesn't try to own anything or control anything, but that way people can know that, hey, you can jump to SCRF to see what's coming up in research around all kinds of different topic areas. And so to give a concrete example, and this QR code is to the Telegram group that we just created, so if you actually want to be part of learning more about the DAO Research Hub as we're getting it off the ground, please feel free to jump into our Telegram group. But here we're specifically focusing, what does a decentralized research center on DAOs and governance look like? Right, so it's going to focus on Web3 and that specific topic of DAOs and governance. We're going to build a network between universities, between industry, between independent researchers. We're going to hire a postdoc and fellow layer and embed them at universities to build those bridges. And we're going to work on all of the general infrastructure necessary to be able to make this kind of ecosystem operational in the first place. And the reason SCRF is very excited to work with other organizations to get this accomplished is because of the fact that, again, in that previous slide, we think governance is but one of many of these that need to exist. And right now, the way we're mapping it is there need to at least be 9, but it could be many more. We have no clue. This will only come out as we actually start working with different groups to build these kind of networks together. So we're very excited to collaborate with DAO Research Co-op and with MetaGov to actually see what it could look like. And so, in general, the way SCRF is thinking about this is the fact that we've been working for a year and some change at this point on building that meta-level information architecture via our forum, via our GitHub. We've been actively building a community to span across all of the individual communities for anyone who wants to talk about research, who wants to potentially get grants around producing more research, whether primary or summarizing existing research. And we now kind of want to split our focus into being across Web3 networks, so at that meta layer, but also diving really deep in individual topic areas. With the first example of that deep one really being around the DAO Research Hub and delving more into DAOs and governance. And I have a whole bunch more that I can mention about the specific stuff we're working on at SCRF. I'm going to be hitting time soon, so I'm not going to get a chance to. But yeah, we're really excited to support building out this DAO Research Hub initially for governance, and then replicating this. Security is the next topic we're really excited on. Happy to mention how that fits into some other projects that we're working on. But again, we're not going to pretend to know the answers to a lot of the things that we're posing. And we think that anyone who's telling you, hey, we solved research, or we solved science, or we fixed Web3, is probably blowing smoke up somewhere. So we're of the fundamental belief that the only honest answer that we can give to any of these questions is, I don't know, let's experiment and figure it out together. And so we're really excited to get to work with many more organizations to try to run targeted experimentation around supporting research and how to actually maximize the amount of outputs that come out of any research institution and the actual application they have with organizations building. And then we're running a whole separate open peer review project. If you're doing governance research and you have some kind of output coming out soon that you want a free peer review for, let us know. We're exploring that right now of how to give that as a free public service to organizations. But yeah, this is just kind of the wrap-up slide with this is how we're seeing the initial starting point. We want to start the DAO Research Hub, slowly expand to decentralized research centers across many different topic areas. We're currently doing an open peer review experiment. We are interested in seeing what happens with more Web3 publications. We are not taking a concrete stance on it yet. And then all of this bottom meta-level knowledge network is the stuff that SCRF does in our day-to-day operations. So sorry that I kind of started, then had to speed through the PowerPoint. Sorry if that was disjointing. But if you do want to directly jump into the Discord of SCRF, the Smart Contract Research Forum community, please jump in. There's our site. There's my Twitter and our organizational Twitter. Always happy to talk about either DAO research or overall research for Web3. I'm assuming I'm at time, though, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there. But yeah, thank you all for taking the time.